All right. Hey, so I'm so excited to be doing this. This is such a cool event. Um, I don't know if anyone has had a chance to, but if you've had a chance, there are some incredible other publishers. I'm not trying to kick you out of here at all, but there are some incredible other publishers doing some amazing things. Um, there's over 100 doing readings and discounts and all of this. So again, not trying to kick you out of here, but there's some really awesome stuff going on other places this weekend. So if you haven't had a chance, look at that book fair, because I'm going to be spending some time there for sure. So anyway, thank you all for coming in to this reading. I'm going to be reading a few selections of poems from my book, To Drown a Man. And then I'm going to be moving into some newer pieces, and I'm going to end with a short story later on. Afterward, I really can't describe it. I would be absolutely thrilled to answer any questions. So please, if anyone does have any questions, I would be just completely, I am completely humbled and honored to be doing this. But if you have any questions, I would love to talk about it. So, To Drown a Man is the title of my book, and I guess I'll kind of be taking you through a little bit of the process of what it is and why I wrote it. I have been writing pretty seriously since I was early in high school, and there was a period, I guess, in my mid-20s where I wasn't sure if I was going to be doing it anymore. Not because I wasn't finding success or I wasn't enjoying it anymore, but it had just become like a thing that I did because someone told me that I was good at it. And I kind of used it to keep people at a distance from me. And so there's a period of time where I kind of put it aside for a while, and my priorities just drastically changed. And so the poems in this collection, some of them are fairly old, but they kind of came about as some of the first things that I wrote after picking up a pen again. And so To Drown a Man, this poem was one of the early ones where I was really starting to think about, the pieces of myself and the pieces of my personality that I wanted to bring with me, and those that I wanted to leave behind. So this is To Drown a Man. To drown a man who looks like you in deep water, you've got to mean it. He's going to get strong once he realizes what you're doing. The fact that there is nothing to hold but a face like yours, inherited nose, recognizable scars, presents further complexity. Keep in mind, you only have a moment to get hold of him. Don't have pity. He's going to make the awful sounds men make when they start to die. But if you hesitate, don't hesitate. A missionary couple found an anaconda in their kitchen. They called a local to cleave its head, but the snake, as big around as you are, turned to cut wire, wrecked 2 windows and a table. The man, he's going to die like that. He'll try to persuade you he's got a wife and kids, and haven't you known each other such a long time? But that's the problem, because while one of you is laying bricks, the other comes behind unmortaring. The other problem is keeping him underwater. He wants to float, so you tether him with cords of seaweed that pulp apart. It will feel like you are choking a piece of yourself. But if you aren't ruthless, he's going to be the one to walk away. Raise your kids, make love to your wife in the dark. If you aren't holding on, he'll kick off not for the surface, but for you, because I promise he means it. And so that metaphor, that idea of trying to drown somebody stuck with me, and it just seemed like a very appropriate way, a very appropriate image that the collection kind of took shape around. So thematically, something similar. Now, this isn't in the collection. This is called Rhinoceros Holy Saturday. And I wrote this a couple of years ago. It appeared just a little while ago in a new journal called Solum. But I wrote it on that Saturday between Good Friday and Easter, after being really struck, reading the accounts and really struck that that some of the women in the accounts after Good Friday went home and kept the Sabbath. And I thought, there's no way that I would do that. If there's ever a time to break a rule, to break a religious practice, it would have been then. And that stuck with me. And so I think I thematically returned to some of the same things that you heard in To Drown a Man, but just approaching it from a new lens. So this is Rhinoceros Holy Saturday. 1, I read Psalm 23, try it, but I'm a wire ball of want. Can a soul have a stomach? If so, mine is cancerous, swallowing shovelfuls of fuel, still starving. Sometimes I try to stop myself and the cup of water on the dash begins to thrum. Over my shoulder, night. A shape approaches through the trees. 2, the sneaking suspicion of hidden pockets, wafers where the membrane thins. Where does that come from? Fish have an organ in their ear whose sole purpose is to produce homesickness. I'm always throwing open doors. Age first showed between my eyebrows, the line where some people see from a third eye, but mine is never opened. In the mirror, I lean in, squinting. 3, I believe in presence, you, but also most days not. Most days feel like the spilling over of an overstuffed closet. I fall a long way before I land. Most days, the best I hope for is an exact copy of yesterday's plan. Then I complain. I am impossible to please. Sometimes waking, what I really long for is Jacob's stairway, or even just a rope ladder beside the bed, wobbling upward, disappearing, attached to nothing. 4, I could maybe lick this holiness thing, but for people. Crowds populate my life. Kids, work, errands, whirling dervishes of noise. I am always being asked for something. Milk, it feels like, usually chocolate. Everyone is always asking me for chocolate milk, but I'm not a good listener. At least this is what my loved ones say sometimes, I think. I've begun to understand monastic living, at least the lore of it, fists of rosaries, the cell, hours of loneliness and prayer, beautiful hours of lonely prayer, and thus perfection. Google, are there still monks, monasteries? Is there an application fee? Besides, I mean, of course, this wouldn't solve anything. A friendly monk would ask for something, give me the hand signal for chocolate milk. The real problem is the rhinoceros of hate inside. Some days I strangle him. Sometimes he roams free. 5, every good thing I do drags in pride behind. Compassion's muddy footprints or a skip it roped to my ankle. I was going to say like Marley's chains, but I want you to think I'm cleverer than that. Google, how to acknowledge faults so people like you. Maybe it's the opposite that's true. My pride tracks in good deeds, inevitable byproduct of wanting approval. Maybe goodness is knowing when to jump. After you died, they claw-hammered nails from your hands. They went home and faithfully obeyed the Sabbath. You know better than I do. I am so not there. On fire and tangled. I am waiting for something unspecified. I'll know it when I see it. And so then the last poem I'm going to read, I'll read one more poem, and then I want to read a very short piece of fiction that comes along. The last poem, this is the closing poem in my collection called Holy Ghost. And I was able to kind of talk about where some of the other poems came from. This is one of my favorites because honestly, I have no idea where it came from. I know it took shape over a long period of time, but it was one of those rare things that seemed to just kind of fall in my lap. And so like Rhinoceros, it's in 2 different parts. And it's kind of a 2-way dialogue. So part 1 is me. And then part 2 is me trying to listen. And I've heard like Brene Brown referred to it as like the mental trust. These people, this guidance that she has in her head, mentors that she has known in her life and mentors from afar. And I'm trying to listen to that. And the closing of the poem, most of all, is the thing that just feels like it fell onto me. It's one of my favorite lines that I've ever written. So this is Holy Ghost 1. You come upon me like a snake bite, that suddenly, and I'm speaking in tongues. My throat so full of fire, my lungs unused to your breath. I speak often of your death, but have never actually watched a man die. So the words come out bloodless. You come upon me visceral as a bloody fingerprint on my forehead, like my father trimming a maple with a hacksaw, all sinew and body odor, what I have been waiting so long for, like when, as a boy, after months of digging, prehistoric teeth finally came up, or so I thought, with worms and the calcite. You come upon me like not knowing I've passed out until I've already come to, like seeing a knife sheathed in my own flesh, realizing that something is in you. Glory, I am bleeding glory. You come upon me and my mouth is full of fire. Say my name, say something, say this, I was 25, my daughter's crib, a shadow prison. Your spider fingers over me, what you said that night when it felt like I might die. I look for hidden pockets of your voice, the smallest wafer, but secretly I'm afraid if I should find it, what then? Secretly, I am afraid of convincing myself that my own thoughts are you. The fossils I found were not dinosaurs, but cow's teeth my father had buried, and then showed me where to dig one last crater in our lunar yard, because I had expected them for so long, he said. 2. Tyler, settle yourself into silence. Take what package you find on your doorstep and serve it to the guests. Do not demand more. More will come, or not. There is space in the world. The heron rises, shaking marsh water from its wings. You are a tree in wind. The universe flames around you. Forgive your father, his false bones. You too have lied. And so To Drown a Man is, it's small. It's a relatively short collection, but my main focus has always been fiction, and so I kind of turned my attention to poetry for a little while, and so a large part of the collection came together pretty quickly. But some of them are picked and chosen from over probably 10 years, which is kind of my segue. So I want to close with a last piece called Haunt. And I started this piece way back in college, soon after discovering Amy Hempel, which there's a few people here who are former students of mine, and I've pushed Amy Hempel on, I think, every student I've had. And I wanted to really be Amy Hempel when I first discovered her. So I wrote this long, I think it was like a 25-page story, and I tried it out for a little while, and I thought it was done. And it didn't really get a good response in the workshop that I was a part of. And so I chalked that up to everyone just not understanding how good my story actually was. And I put it aside, and I took it out another 5 years later, and I went, oh, this is bad. This is not good at all. And so I tried to, gussy it up again using more complicated vocabulary, and again, sent it out, and it didn't get a good response. And again, I went, well, that's because nobody gets how good this story really is. And I finally took it out again this summer, and again, when there's something here, but it had a long way to go. So what ended up happening was I took this 20-page story and I just chopped it to pieces, trying to get at what was actually working in the story, what the story was really about. The story is about a narrator who was responsible for like an unspecified accident that has really, really harmed her niece. And so it's about both her relationship with the niece, but more her relationship with her sister. And so this 20-page story became like a 3-page story this summer. And finally, I felt like I had something there. So it's called Haunt, which is both she really can't bring herself to be close with the sister's family after that. Even though they're physically close, she keeps a lot of distance there, and kind of keeps track via social media, but not in real life. And in the final revisions, I realized the narrator, if you pay close attention, the narrator is really a ghost in this. Maybe not a literal ghost, but emotionally, she is a ghost through the whole thing. And it's kind of about that longing for connection, which I think is a recurring theme that we all have, but certainly seems to be a recurring thing in my work. So this is Haunt. Every morning, Claire lifts my niece out of bed to change the linens, check the backside of her legs, clear the feeding line. They could have nurses, but why pay others, Claire says. This is the difference between my sister and I. She posts pictures of Millie's care, updates like ice pics of optimism. In every picture, Claire is preened, hopeful. I keep track via decoy accounts, lurkers. Any pictures, I'm at the edges, neither in or out. My sister treats Facebook like a rewound offering plate. Take what you like. She and Aaron at a cousin's wedding with Dad and Paulette. Aaron and Jake boxing an oversized glove. A single birch tree in their front yard. Family symbol, still standing after the storm. The rest is Millie. Of course, her expression's always the same, never not in her parlor room hospital bed, but Claire provides clues. Sorting hat, unlit sparkler, to the occasion. I take and I take. I haven't talked to them in person for almost 5 years since the accident, even though I live less than a mile away. Claire has no idea. I was all over before I came back here, like water down a drain. My boyfriend, Zeke, talks to the dead, like that kid. He sings in a novelty band, Channel 5. All his lyrics, this is true, are from ghosts. Something that's still relevant on the other side, he says. What else is worth singing about? They have one called Squish. What about someone in a coma? I asked him, like a vegetable. Could you talk to them? At what point is a person dead enough to hear? He doesn't know about Millie, doesn't even know I have a sister. I should be happy for them, right? Most families would implode. So why aren't I? Why does their adjustment to suffering feel offensive? I could show up at any time unannounced, and I know exactly what she'd do. The problem is, I don't know what she'd mean. Online, my sister is elegantly casual, the illusion of not caring, but anyone that okay is not okay. She'd pull me into a hug. I've never blamed you. How could I? But it would only be performance or photo op. What I really want is to be on the receiving end of one solid, honest haymaker. I want to see if I can take it. If anyone would ask me, why didn't you? I tell them, you know the dream where you can't do the simplest things like scream, or a man is attacking and you can't lift your hands, but no one ever asks. We're in Costco one Saturday when I see them through gaps in the shelving. Claire is pushing Millie, pointing out colors while Aaron and Jake check the list. I hit the floor so hard the shelf wobbles. Zeke watches Millie and shakes his head. So sad, he says, then picks out soup. I hurry to the bathroom, retch into an unflushed toilet, but nothing comes. I spend the afternoon online, shaken, looking for cracks in their life, not knowing if I want to find them or not. Usually I tell myself I'm making sure they're okay, but what's okay? There's a new picture of Jake driving a toy car at Millie's bed. If there were real people inside, they'd be screaming. Zeke has a show that night. Usually I'd go. Who doesn't love choosing to be haunted? But instead I rummage through his tools, the closet where he hides liquor. What I'm thinking about doing is unwell, I know, but he doesn't ask, even though I got the idea from one of his songs. I leave the house wielding a hacksaw and a fifth. I am tired of holding my breath. Parked around the corner from my sister's place, my knees won't stop bouncing. Zeke's ghosts, are they everywhere? Are they here too? It's so easy to imagine a river of them, their wispy murmurings under and around my skin. The car already feels full, and me. Can you call what I do living? That afternoon, after seeing them, I took a bath. Zeke was looking for me, asking if there was anything I wanted to say. I plugged my nose and leaned back, letting the water close over my face, and stayed that way for hours. The first drink is like that. It cracks a window. Things melt. They open. In the dark, I pause to pry my shoes off. Honestly, I have ambulance lust. I want sirens, for something to force their hand so I don't have to. But here we are. I need her to admit it. Anything less than hatred is a sham. My skull is too small for the angry, swelling thing inside. But even from the first swipe, I can tell it'll be almost impossible to cut all the way through their birch. But I'm nothing if not resolute. I work myself stupid, out of body, but hardly make a dent. When did I start crying? I sit down, a child, and smear snot on the back of my wrist, going over and over the memory, Millie's blubbering, the sensation of leaking like a tongue over a cracked tooth. The front door opens, and house light spills into the yard. I stand up, commence sawing in double time. Claire's in jeans, red-eyed. There's either a tan cream or literal shit all over her wrists, the kind of image she would never allow online. I focus everything I have on cutting, frantic and wild. The tree shakes, leaves rattling like breath. Claire watches. She covers her mouth. So that's going to be, Haunt will be after 10 to 15 years of editing and writing. Haunt will be in a magazine called Montana Mouthful here at some point in the next several months. So I'm excited about that. And I think that I have learned a lesson in being patient with editing the pieces that I'm looking on, or that I'm working on, because I don't always have a clear view of them. So in retrospect, I'm very happy that that story took me that long, because I think I discovered some things along the way that I never would have been able to. So that's what I have for the reading tonight. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm really, really gratified and really humbled just to be able to do that. So I really appreciate it. I'll hang out. If you do have any questions, like I said, I would be totally thrilled to answer them and talk about it a little bit. But also, if you haven't, please check out some of the other presses and readings, because there's a ton going on. So thank you.